Hi everyone, my name is Dan Chow from Hashkey Capital. Hashkey is one of the earliest and biggest investor in the blockchain space. We have invested in total over 500 projects over the past seven years. It is my great pleasure and my honor to introduce to you my panelists tonight. They are Dominic, founder and chief scientist of Dfinity. Welcome, Dominic.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And Ilya, co-founder of Near Protocol. Ilya.
Thank you for having me here.
And Juan, founder of the Protocol Labs, or should I say Filecoin?
Protocol Labs started Filecoin. Hey everyone, great to see you. Thanks for having me here.
Hi, thank you very much for joining me in this panel. Like last year, we'll be talking about the layer one ecosystem. So my first question, as usual, will be in overview of what happened last year. I still remember last year when we get together, Dominic just celebrated the launch of mainnet, Dfinity mainnet, a few months before our last year's summit. So I would like to start with you. What are the greatest news or highlights about the Dfinity ecosystem that you hope to share with the community?
Well, I think the biggest, most exciting thing is just the things that are being built on the internet computer. And we're seeing the emergence of a whole new breed of Web3 service that runs 100% from the blockchain rather than from, cloud computing services. And just seeing what people are doing with that is immensely exciting. And I think it's really marking a turning point in the history of blockchain. And, one of the objectives of the internet computer blockchain is to enable people to build absolutely anything, any system, any service, and on the blockchain and have it run from the blockchain entirely, and also to, emit less CO2 than people do when they build on cloud. So the internet computer is orders of magnitude more efficient than existing blockchains. And it relies on this thing called chain key cryptography, which has been under development for years. It's difficult to do. And that's also being extended. So for example, people are now beginning to build systems on the internet computer that act as kind of Web3 orchestrators. So for example, you can write code on the internet computer that directly operates on Bitcoin balances without there being a bridge. And there are people, building a new generation of social-fi, game-fi, metaverse projects that run 100% from the blockchain, but also now we're seeing the emergence of sort of cross-chain DeFi projects that aim to make use of this technology.
Thank you, Juan. Next, I will ask the same question to Ilya. So we also witnessed the booming Near ecosystem over the past year. So could you share some of the most important developments in the Near ecosystem and what has kept you and your team busy the last year?
Sure, yeah. I mean, this has been an amazing year in general for crypto, but for Near, we just actually had our NearCon in Lisbon. We had 3,000 people coming together for it, which was amazing. And there's a lot of really cool projects, really cool builders doing all kinds of, the whole spectrum of things. I think just to give you a few highlights, over the past year. So we had Aurora launch, which is an EVM smart contract that runs on Near. So you can take pretty much another blockchain and just run it as a smart contract on Near ecosystem, and then provide all of the tooling around that to make it kind of carbon copy of Ethereum, just about 10 times cheaper than Polygon. So that's been running for like 8-9 months. They also have really cool service Aurora Plus, which gives you free transactions as you interact with it. So there's just an example of something you can build really easily on Near. We've been really focused on decentralizing our ecosystem. So we've kind of spun up regional hubs across different regions. We started in China, but also kind of Ukraine that's now in Portugal, Balkans, Kenya, and we just announced India and Vietnam. And so we're going to continue doing that, but that's already kind of creates a huge presence in these regions. We have, lots of developers from there, as well as kind of user base is growing there. And kind of, you can see, especially in those places which are, our developing markets, like kind of excitement around technology, which probably is more than you would usually have in US, kind of where it's more speculative. Here, people actually want to, use it for real life situations. We just had kind of at NearCon Sweatcoin, which is a move to earn, which has 120 million installs and launching their token. And so this has actually just propelled our active users, active daily users and transactions. I think they have like 200,000 kind of users already on chain, very active. They've created 12 million accounts out of that. So it's kind of insane to see like actual mass user base using. This is people who don't know what crypto is at all. Kind of the user experience. And the reason why they're doing this on Near is because of user experience, right? It's just so easy to onboard people. It's so simple. People don't even know that they're using blockchain until they kind of starting to figure out kind of how can they use their coins. So I think that's kind of the examples of like, this global strategy that we're trying to achieve to build this decentralized network, right? Like it's not about nodes like that run like hardware. It's also about people and kind of organizations around the world that kind of working together to build this ecosystem. So yeah.
Thank you, Ilya. Juan, we also witnessed a lot of, we saw the Protocol Labs has achieved a lot of milestones over the past year. Would you share some of the most important developments of your ecosystem over the past year?
Yeah, totally. This has been a massive year for us too. I'll focus on two areas. One area is just storage onboarding. So when I was here last year, we had, I think, around like 20 petabytes of data use. We're now at over 180 petabytes. So that's a massive amount of growth in 1 year. And the most exciting part there is the growth rate. So we'll see where we are in a year, but it'll be a pretty exciting amount of data use. This is coming from lots of different applications. People are building new kinds of things, building new companies and so on. There's kind of over 500 new startups building on Filecoin, and some of these are kind of already getting to kind of seed or Series A stage, which is pretty great. And one of the cool turn events here is in this year we started crossing the chasm over to Web2. So now large-scale organizations like universities like Berkeley and Harvard and others are starting to use Filecoin to store valuable data and valuable data sets. And even cities like New York and so on for public civic data. Now, the second strand that is, I think, super exciting is that we're bringing computation to the data. So one part is onboard all of humanity's data. The second part is get computation to come to the data so you can build much better applications. On that, we shipped the first milestone of FEM, which is a WASM-based hypervisor. That's going to bring EVM compatibility and it's going to allow other VMs to slot into Filecoin. And that's going to be, we'll turn on user-enabled smart contracts probably in Q1. That's the current target. And that is going to enable a set of layer 2s around Filecoin that do large-scale data pipelines and data and compute around the data stored on Filecoin. So all of the storage providers out there that are kind of like scaling their data storage can now put all their GPUs to use running data pipelines on top of that data. So another really exciting set of developments is people are building different compute over data networks. So being able to do large scale task scheduling on top of Filecoin. So those are two strands: onboarding massive amounts of data and scaling that, and then bringing compute that data.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to move the applications over the past year. I still remember last year when we were doing our panel discussion, the market sentiment was still very high, but now we are kind of in a down market. But we have seen tremendous growth over the past year in areas like DeFi, NFT, GameFi, SocialFi, and a few other sectors. I understand you all have your own focuses in building your ecosystem in the application layer. So my question is, what kind of applications you would like to see in your ecosystem, and why those sectors or verticals? I would like to start this time with Juan.
So there's lots of different applications that people are building on Filecoin. So things like, think of like the normal day-to-day apps that people use. So from storing personal data to storing companies' data and so on. But we're starting to see people experimenting with social applications. So think of video distribution, kind of like TikTok style applications. And I think that's going to be really exciting. There's a lot of problems to solve across the blockchain space before that kind of thing becomes likely. Like it'll probably be like another year or two before we see like a major social network that is fully decentralized. But all of those builders are getting started now and experimenting with their setups. One of the things that I find most exciting is now that we're onboarding massive scale data sets, people being able to do data science on top of those data sets. So being able to run different kinds of experiments, being able to analyze big data scale things, being able to what's kind of near term, and Ilya and I've talked a lot about this, is machine learning and being able to do kind of build large scale machine learning models around all of this data. And so when crypto and Web3 and machine learning meet, that's going to be a super massive growth moment. And so we're getting prepared for that, because we sort of anticipate that it'll be sometime like next year next year to the year after, where a lot of this stuff is finally going to converge. And so I think right now people are building applications primarily around just using that data, being able to retrieve the data, view it, have applications to explore it, and they're getting started building a data science part of being able to run computation around it. And this is kind of like on top of all the normal Web3 stuff. So think of like NFTs, NFT auction houses, and games, metaverse things. All of that is naturally already part of the blockchain space and lives on Filecoin. Things like metaverse rooms and auctioning those and as NFTs and whatnot. But what I'm super excited about is like the next horizon, where like you finally can onboard all of the Web2 data into Web3.
Thank you. Next time I'm going to ask the same question to to Dominic. Last year, I remember you talk about one of your focuses, or two of your focuses will be SocialFi and GameFi. If we look back over the past year and looking forward, will that still be your focus in the ecosystem?
That's one of many focuses. I think the Internet Computer Project always pursued this goal of creating a world computer. And today it's the only real world computer blockchain where you can build almost anything entirely on the blockchain and have smart contracts process HTTP requests and serve content directly to end users. And it's possible to build a social network on the Internet Computer if you want, and have that run without an intermediary. And that's very different to any other blockchain or decentralized system in existence today. Today, when you look at Web3 services that say they're built on blockchain XYZ, what they really mean, of course, is they're built on typically Amazon Web Services, and a few tokens get processed on the blockchain, and little snippets of data here and there. We've seen the emergence of all kinds of different system and service on the internet computer. Look, the long-term goal is to replace all of traditional IT with the internet computer. It's not just about Web3, but of course, entrepreneurs are always ahead of the curve, and so now it's mostly about Web3. There's a service running on the internet computer called OpenChat. I know the team well. It's actually a messaging service that's delivered directly into your browser by smart contracts. All the messages that users send to each other, and there are many tens of thousands of users, all the messages that users send to each other are processed by smart contracts, including media messages like images and video, and that's all stored on chain in smart contracts. That's completely revolutionary. The big game changer about it is that these services can assign control to DAOs. And the problem is, if you want to do Web3 and you want to enable people to create Web3 services, if you force them to use the cloud, that's not possible, because DAOs are built using smart contracts, and smart contracts can update and configure other smart contracts, but they can't reach out of the blockchain environment and pay for an Amazon Web Services account or update code on Amazon Web Services, which is also, of course, vulnerable to being hacked and things like that. So what we're anticipating shortly, there's been an absolutely tremendous developer growth on the internet computer. There are many hundreds of Web3 projects already running on the internet computer. We see the most advanced of those assigning control to DAOs shortly, fully decentralizing and running things like decentralization sales. So that, I think, will begin to deliver on the true promise of Web3, which is that users will become part owners and of online services, and also become part of the team that runs them. That's happening today, and I expect that SocialFi, for example, will certainly be amongst the sort of niches leading the charge. To give you an idea, OpenChat, everyone listening should check it out. It's at oc.app. It runs entirely from the internet computer. It's built with smart contracts. That is a SocialFi service. At first sight, it looks like it's possibly a decentralized version of Signal or WhatsApp. But if you look a bit more deeply, you'll see that every chat account is also a crypto wallet, and that you can send ICP using chat messages, but in the future you'll also be able to send other crypto. So I mentioned earlier that the internet computer has just started upgrading with these extensions to this thing called chain key cryptography that enables smart contracts on the internet computer to create transactions on other blockchains. And that means it can interoperate directly with things like the Bitcoin ledger. So you can have a chat message, you will be able to have, send a chat message in OpenChat that actually moves some Satoshis on the Bitcoin ledger itself. There's no wrapping or anything like that. And that will also apply to ETH and ERC20 tokens that reside on the Bitcoin, on the Ethereum ledger. And you don't need a bridge or anything like that. If you want to send some ETH to someone, or an ERC20 token to someone, or an NFT, you'll just have to create a chat message. So that's SocialFi. That's the merger of social media with DeFi on a sort of true Web3 platform, a true world computer where everything runs from chain, and you can decentralize these services and run them in the mode of protocols. That's the crucial step. Otherwise, on traditional blockchain, the problem is that because the vast majority of data storage and data processing and web serving is happening on cloud computing services, the developers of those Web3 services are kind of legally liable for them. So if you try to do that by, for example, building the engine of the messaging service on Amazon Web Services, the danger is that you as a developer would fall afoul of money transmitter regulations, that kind of thing. The solution, of course, is to build the Web3 service entirely on the blockchain, so it's fully decentralized, and place it under the control of a DAO, such that it's running in the mode of a protocol. That's what we're really interested in. But I think it's difficult to categorize. What we're saying is it's difficult to categorize this new emerging breed of Web3 services, because oftentimes they incorporate a little bit of everything. There's a bit of gamification, there's some social media, there's some DeFi, and increasingly, there's metaverse aspects to them too. All I know is that I think we're going to be surprised by what developers come up with on these platforms.
Thank you, Dom. Ilya, what will be your focus in building your ecosystem in terms of application verticals?
Yeah, so as I kind of had in my talk last year, we see three major pillars of kind of blockchain, and I think Dom have mentioned them, right? It's finance, it's social, and I think the other one that's important is creator, right? And so the interplay of these three verticals and pillars is really where the interesting things happen, right? Like it's social and finance, it's creators coming in and kind of figuring out new business models for themselves, right? Through working with their community, through financial instruments. And kind of for us, we've been making sure like the ecosystem has all the pieces to allow people to kind of co-create and combine this in new different ways. I think the kind of obviously interesting highlights are things like how do we integrate the DeFi, right, the on-chain finance with real-world finance, right? We have projects like NearPay, which allows you to issue a card and pay directly from Near account, turning your Near account directly into a bank account, because we have like a different key model that allows people to actually kind of give non-custodial permissions to other parties. You can have things like real-world assets, bringing them back, right? Like in many ways, things that happen right now inside different markets can be brought on chain and kind of create a more liquid markets, more efficient markets as well. And that opens up kind of a whole new economy there. You have obviously the huge creator space, right? Everything from gaming to, digital to art to music to video. Like there's kind of a whole explosion of creators coming and trying different things, as well as people building tools for them, right? Like Listen to Earn, to kind of create a more direct kind of reward model, people who curate content across different platforms for different creators, people who are, obviously different marketplaces, etc. And then on the social side, I mean, DAOs are great, but it's just a tool, right? At the end, it's about the community. And so we see kind of a ton of people both already building existing social apps, integrating kind of blockchain, NFTs, etc. as a component, as well as building things from scratch. And I definitely agree that kind of having a full end-to-end on-chain functionality is really important going forward. And so actually has the ability to now not just build smart contract, you can actually build smart contract in JavaScript and embed your serving the front end exactly from JavaScript directly on chain. And so in a way, for people who are familiar with full stack development, this is as if they were building a web service and just kind of shipping it to blockchain, being fully served from blockchain. So we see kind of through this, right, through having all those basic components, integrating in the real world, integrating in real applications, and then with JavaScript kind of enabling this huge explosion of innovation. And we see the growth of our applications on Near. It's pretty much 20% month over month growth right now. So it's pretty 800, we hit 800 the other day, and then kind of continues growing from there.
Thanks, Ilya. You guys all talk about developers. So could you share or describe the typical developer profile in your ecosystem, like geographies? Where are they typically from? Backgrounds? Most of them are from tech backgrounds? And recently there's been a lot of discussion about the inflow of Web2 developers into Web3 space. Did you see that happening? If not, what stops them from joining Web3? And further, what developer toolings have you and your ecosystem built to onboard them to your ecosystem more easily? Probably this time I will start with Ilya.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I guess starting from tooling, but I mentioned JavaScript, and I think this is the best tool to onboard, right? We've as Near been focused on like how do we make developer and user experience as simple as possible, right? We want to be the easiest blockchain to develop and use, and kind of it's been a journey through some other tooling to get to JavaScript, but as we launched it, we see kind of amazing pickup, right? We just had a hackathon with NearCon, and about like 1/3 was building on Solidity, 1/3 was built in JavaScript, 1/3 just use actually JavaScript and other tools with existing smart contracts and integrating in existing tools. So it's a very like nice distribution, and generally JavaScript is like 20 million developers that like one way or another know how to build on it. So it's a huge kind of also growing market share, and it integrates really well into kind of the full stack. Obviously, we have like, I don't know, indexers, kind of data lakes, like all of the tooling that you need to build like event streams, stuff like this to make sure that as a developer, you don't need to think about infrastructure when you spin up, right? And making sure like we continue working on like how do you make for your users that you don't need to think about blockchain, kind of starting as well as if you're coming from other blockchains, how do you not need to like figure out accounts, etc. on the day one, right? Like you can just start using your existing Web3 wallet or Web2 identity, and then kind of progressively onboard into Near ecosystem and make it like kind of find the home here. I think on the developer side, obviously with JavaScript, we've seen an amazing pickup. I think the main kind of problems that, or like what the things that stop Web2 developers from joining usually is either they don't understand what they can build, and so there's a lot of kind of ideation and just like education, and we've been running Near University to do that, and we kind of continue growing that. And then the other side is, yeah, they kind of did not until this did not understand, like, you know, they saw this very steep onboarding path. So like making sure that the path is very easy. Kind of the product we're going to be launching is you just can literally pick either existing like example or even an existing app that's launched on Near, because if you have fully packaged smart contract and front end that's sitting in one place on chain, you can literally just say fork it and then edit it in IDE and launch it, right? And it's fully served again. So like just making that path extremely simple. Like you can, like in 15 seconds, you have your own copy of an app on testnet. You can play with it. And then the other thing we're going to be launching is a security sandbox, which allows you to launch a new app that's kind of contained by the kind of some security thresholds, limiting the impact of potential hacks and problems you have. So again, accelerating the this problem that everybody's waiting for audits, which are also not perfect. And in result, they like by the time they actually launch the product, right, they kind of lost the momentum on actually building the product. So just really trying to make this path as both fast but also safe at the end as possible, because people also feel like a lot of stress just like launching smart contracts because they feel it's going to be insecure and going to get hacked. So how do we do that? How do we protect the users on the other side? Make it really easy to use, and you know, gives us examples to the developers that they can build really amazing stuff.
Thanks, Ilya. Juan, do you see the inflow of Web2 developers into Web3, and what kind of what type of developers do you see are the most in your ecosystem?
Yeah, we see a massive influx. Like in the last year, we have seen many thousands of new developers joining the Falcon ecosystem. We even see it in applications who join us. We get thousands of applications, and we have the way the Falcon ecosystem approaches this is to build a builder network where we have a whole sort of like pipeline that supports developers that are trying to build a new kind of thing. So everything from developer tools to hackathons, grants, and all of that coupled to accelerator programs and an investor network to support people building companies and businesses and new protocols. And then after that, kind of advice and coaching for the builders building. And that has been super successful. And so we've seen just a large amount of growth of many startups in the Filecoin ecosystem growing over time. Another really, really key thing for us is events. Events enable us to get to know a lot of different communities in different parts of the world. So there's kind of like the main large scale Filecoin events like Phil Austin, Phil Toronto, Phil Korea, Phil Seoul. Phil Singapore is about to happen in a couple of weeks in September 26th. So hope to see a lot of you there. And Phil Lisbon will come after that in late October. And so those were sort of the core of where a lot of new people come into the Filecoin community, get to know us, meet each other, and then come up with ideas for future things. And there's also a sort of like satellite events that we call the Orbit program, where lots of different meetups around the world start gathering and talk about Filecoin as a tech and how to get started, help kind of give workshops to people trying to build things and or potentially becoming SPs. Like one of the key things here is that Filecoin is a productive network where a lot of participants can come in to provide resources and get rewarded for doing so. And so a lot of people around the world are entering as new source providers. And we see growth in a lot of regions. So one of the big things we've seen a lot of growth in Korea, in Japan, in Singapore, in Australia, in South America, and in Europe. And so, and of course, like a lot of growth continuing in North America, but that was already there. What we haven't seen as much growth in that we kind of are trying to focus is in different parts of Africa. Those are areas where we want to also grow the community. And yeah, I think like Phil Singapore will be like a really good example of bringing the community together to reinforce that growth.
Thank you, Juan. Dominic, could you share your observations and what you and your team have been doing to onboard more developers?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing adoption across the board, everything from Web 2 developers to developers who've been building on other blockchains and then found out about the features of the internet computer and the efficiency it offers. We, like everyone, I guess, continue to try and improve the developer onboarding funnel. We've recently been sort of incorporating the community into those efforts. And for example, now I believe there's 158 sample dApps up on internetcomputer.org to help new developers get started. There's a lot of, education has to be done, a lot of technical documentation that has to be produced. The big thing, I think, is the big challenge for us is just educating people about the scale of the differences between the internet computer and other blockchains. So on the internet computer, smart contracts, I think it's called canisters, they actually run deterministically in parallel. They're actor model smart contracts. Of course, they can process HTTP requests and serve web direct to end users in a cryptographically secure way. So the developers who come from other blockchains have to start getting a head around that, abandoning cloud. They don't have reentrancy, but they have other kinds of challenges related to asynchrony. There are all kinds of new features coming online, like multi-block transactions, so people can do things like video editing on the blockchain. We have daemon features, so you can create smart contracts that get invoked regularly by the blockchain itself. There's this thing called orthogonal persistence. So in fact, on the internet computer, each smart contract is a bundle of WebAssembly and persistent memory pages that it runs within. And as such, there's no real storage API, or you can create one. You can just, allow data to persist in, variables and collections you create in memory as normal. There's all kinds of differences. So, we're constantly working on expanding our technical documentation and improving it to help people get their heads around this sort of super advanced blockchain and the functionality it provides.
Thank you, Dom. Last year, we also talked about mass adoption. I was asking about where are we now on our way to mass adoption. When I look back over a year, despite the market downturn, I still think the industry or the ecosystem has made big strides in many ways, like users, applications. But still, I hope to ask the same question this year again. Where are we now on the way to mass adoption, and what are the gaps, if there's any? Can we start with Juan?
Yeah, sure. So we've seen mass adoption on a number of fronts. So on one part, anything that's related to kind of static distribution and so on, we already see mass adoption. So for example, IPFS has like a scale of like 10 million unique weekly people view content through IPFS nodes, which is like pretty amazing. Like it's a massive scale achievement. Like we were not there, like say a year ago or 2 years ago. But it's still not billions, right? And we need to get to billions. Like that's a huge, huge gap. Now, in the blockchain side of things, we've seen mass adoption in anything that can go through other standard Web2 interfaces. So things like currencies, financial instruments, property rights, all of these kinds of things where blockchains become extremely useful. Like there's a huge advantage in using blockchains, and you can fit through the standard Web2 UIs and interfaces. Like that stuff is working really well, and we've seen already mass adoption. If you think about the millions of people that have used cryptocurrencies and have moved cryptocurrencies and have paid people with those, or have used other kinds of financial instruments like microloans, or have used NFTs, or have sold NFTs, or have different kinds of property rights. So we've seen mass adoption there. The huge gap is in building consumer applications that are fully decentralized, where they work entirely on top of Web3 and can scale to the demand that traditional Web2 things require. There's massive gaps there. So there's gaps because the systems don't work at that scale yet. There's all kinds of holes to close, and we're all working on it. The three of us here and many hundreds of other developers, maybe thousands of other blockchain developers and protocol designers are working on solving these problems and clearing these gaps. But part of the problem is there's this massive scale of infrastructure that we can't use from the Web2 world because it comes with all kinds of assumptions about the Web2 traditional centralized model of how things are run. So you have to rebuild lots of different layers in this fully decentralized model to then be able to operate fully decentralized applications and services and have them scale to the transactional throughputs that we require. So as we close more and more of those gaps, as we get to being able to have fully end-to-end applications work, I think of building something like Twitter or TikTok with massive amount of scale in terms of the data use and the computation that has to go in, and all the different pipelines that are involved in producing feeds and recommending tweets and flagging abusive content and all that kind of stuff. To think of all of that layer of computation having to be built in a fully decentralized way, where different groups of people can select what they buy into, and you have policy, you have community-oriented policies of how to govern those systems. So that's a ton of stuff to do. I think we'll see kind of the first major kind of billion-scale consumer applications in probably 2 to 3 years. At least I don't think we'll see it next year. It'd be great if we see it next year, but I think if we do, we'll probably see that under the hood it's still running on a Web2 cloud, and so we have to get completely off of the Web2 cloud to be have fully decentralized applications, and that's what I don't think will happen for another 2 to 3 years. As we chip away at the problems, we'll see larger and larger things, but it'll be a while until we have the full scale thing.
Thank you, Juan. Dom, last year you used a term blockchain singularity. Have we reached the singularity point yet?
No, we haven't reached blockchain singularity. Blockchain singularity is when almost every system and service is running off a blockchain without any need for traditional IT. But look, I mean, we're talking about scalability and what's necessary to support things like social networks on the blockchain. That's already working on the internet computer. If you look through the list of major Web 2 services in existence today, you can find a Web 3 analog being built on the internet computer. There are social media services running 100% from the internet computer blockchain with no cloud, where smart contracts are serving user experiences directly into browsers that already have hundreds of thousands of users today. And so that's I think the first part of the good news about mass adoption. The platforms that you need, the decentralized platforms that you need already exist. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can just build a social network on the internet computer, just one blockchain. It's incredibly efficient. It can serve web. It scales limitlessly. It provides an extraordinarily powerful programming model for developers to use, and it's ready to go. Now, there's another part to this question of mass adoption that's often missed. And this is what is the magic of Web3 that's going to bring in the billions of users. Our answer is tokenization and giving ownership to the users of your service. So I'm continuing with this, just talking about Open Chat for a moment, this messaging service that runs on the internet computer that also acts as a crypto wallet, so you can send crypto and chat messages and things like that. If anyone can check it out, it's at oc.app. It looks like a decentralized version of WhatsApp or Signal, and it provides some kind of DeFi functionality. So you can send crypto, you can store crypto in your chat account and send it in a chat message and so on. But honestly, I don't think that's enough to grow Open Chat to hundreds of millions or billions of users. For that, you need network effects, and you need a special kind of network effect that can enable you to take on the pre-existing network effects of services like WhatsApp, which already have a billion odd users. And the Web3 tool to do this is tokenization and providing ownership to the user community. So to explain, Facebook is currently expanding its campus in the Bay Area so that it can house sort of 65,000 people. And most of the new space is meant for salespeople and people doing content moderation. Now imagine with something like Open Chat, if it starts, randomly airdropping governance tokens from the DAO that, the community DAO that controls the service to users that are doing useful things, such as referring other users or helping moderate content in popular public groups. That's how you can build a decentralized team of millions very fast. Now, to do that, you need to be fully decentralized and you need to run the service as a protocol. If you're really running your decentralized messaging service on Amazon Web Services, and you're just using the blockchain to store some tokens, and you start airdropping those tokens to users through the systems you're running on Amazon Web Services, well, guess what? You're going to find yourself in all kinds of trouble with regulators. The SEC will probably say these governance tokens are securities and you're distributing them for free to stimulate demand. You might get in trouble with the US Treasury Department and FinCEN and all kinds of other parties. So in order to adopt a full Web3 strategy where you pass control to your user community and incentivize them to bring other users on board and make it super viral, you need to run the whole thing as a protocol, which means you need to run the whole thing on the blockchain and assign control of the smart contracts through which your service is created to a community DAO, such that it's running autonomously in the mode of a protocol. And then once you've done that, then you can really begin to leverage tokenization to create something that's incredibly viral and can break through the well-established network effects of Web 2. That is what's just about to start happening. And my prediction is we'll see fully decentralized online social media services next year with millions and millions of users. We can already see this unfolding on the internet computer.
Thank you, Don. Ilya, where are we? How far away are we from mass adoption, and what do you see are the gaps?
Yeah, well, I'll second on Juan and Dom's point that kind of on what like we have still a lot of things to do, but I would say that from tokenization perspective, from people using stuff, we're actually there, right? Like I mentioned, Sweatcoin, 120 million installs. Like they launched a new app 2 days ago, 2.5 days ago. That app has 5 million installs. This is a wallet. They have users, like using token staking, doing stuff, right? So that is mass adoption, like by all means. So I think from this perspective, we are here. Like it's not, it doesn't indeed fully, everything's decentralized, everything is running, but I also want to challenge that and say, like, for me, that's really not about decentralization. Decentralization is a tool to achieve a lot of goals. It's about kind of freedom of choice. It's about ability to own your stuff, and it's about having a almost zero cost of change, cost of switch cost. And so for many of those things, we don't need to like say, oh, we're never going to run a centralized server because it's fine. You can always switch to another one, right? And the reality is, we like there's always a server somewhere running, even if it's a node that serves data at the moment that you connected to via TCP/IP. And so that's why we have a lot of nodes, so you can always switch. That's why we have a lot of RPC providers. That's why we have a lot of wallets. Like you need to have this ability to choose. And so I think like from that perspective, we're actually here, which is I think really insane from thinking. But obviously, it's still not like everybody in the world. We're getting there. I indeed agree. In next year, there's going to be kind of scaling up and just continue kind of integrating. And that's why I'm excited about Brave, Sweatcoin, and like things like this, which solves the cold start problem. It's like the problem of like, I want to get into crypto, or I don't even know what crypto is, but I'm using some app, and now I'm actually have a little bit of kind of this financial asset and exposure to start playing around. And I think, again, Brave as well is, 60 million users that have a little bit of crypto here and there, they'll start playing around. And so I think like those kind of examples is kind of our already foot in the mainstream adoption of people who are not crypto, but actually have and are starting to use these tools. And then, turning that into next stage, which is, yes, bringing more things on chain, kind of turning the regular like things that are not markets or things that are not owned right now by users into kind of Web3 applications is where this is coming. But I do want to highlight one specific very big problem that is not that worked on is privacy. If we think of social networks, if we think of also corporate adoption, all of that ends up being like, oh, actually, we cannot do this because everything is public. And so that's where like TikTok and Twitter are good examples because everything's public, so we can do this. But as soon as you go like, well, actually, I only want to post to my friends. I only want to chat with the group of people I want, right? It becomes extremely complicated to use kind of the current, very much transparency-focused technology. And so I think the core point here is like investing in privacy, delivering that to users, and enabling that truly kind of co-interact with the public parts of the blockchain.
Thank you, Ilya. Finally, I am like last year. I'm going to ask about what would be the most exciting development you are expecting in your ecosystem and the bigger blockchain space. Can I start with Juan?
Yeah. So the most exciting and significant development ahead of us is the launch of VM for user-defined smart contracts in Q1. That's going to enable all kinds of applications to get started. There's a builder net that's going live sometime soon where people can get started and start testing out their smart contracts and start building applications like in a real environment, and then transfer them over to the mainnet once it goes live. And so like that's going to enable just like this explosion of different applications. From there, it's really about building like L2 networks that do the computation pipeline stuff that I was mentioning. That's going to be super exciting. And the launch of the retrieval market. So being able to do, sub-second CDN level delivery, that's going to be super valuable. And that the retrieval market is coming up. The first part of that is going to be going live in later this quarter. And the next, so if people want to beta test that, go out, come in and go to Falco and Saturn and download that and try it out. And that will grow through next year, which will be pretty exciting. And then beyond that, it's just kind of helping developers build their applications and help support all the different groups and companies and so on. Different events will help gather the community to do that. So hope to see you at Phil Singapore, September 26th. Come out and hang out with us there. If you want to help support builders and developers, there's a sub event called Phil VC for various different investors and folks who want to find the startups building on the Filecoin ecosystem. And then next year, I think we'll have a lot more of those events across many different regions. Will be great to meet a lot of the folks in the community. That's it for us.
Thank you, Juan. Ilya, please. What are you expecting for the next year?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, one thing that's coming actually in the next 2 days is transition to next phase of our sharding, which brings in more decentralization. And then through kind of next year, we're going to continue launching more and more of the functionality, pretty much like we're already sharded, but, enabling more functionality on this to continue scaling to support this growth of users that we see. I think obviously the other side is continue growing our kind of ecosystem, both from perspective of kind of regional presence, eco funds, like supportive projects, truly making sure that anybody who has an idea can connect with the community, can find kind of contributors, and then have a kind of opportunity to build and grow their project. Obviously, I'm expecting 10x minimum of growth across all the metrics, but hopefully more. And I think we're going to see some applications that are kind of truly unique because JavaScript just enables such a flexibility that you cannot imagine, right? Like people literally can reprogram their smart contract kind of while it's happening. Like one of the examples being people can just load up JavaScript modules into existing smart contract on demand, or execute a transaction that has a piece of JavaScript in it that executes other smart contracts dynamically. And so just ability to experiment is going to explode. So I'm just looking forward to see kind of the ecosystem growing and experimenting.
Really looking forward to it. Dom, what are you expecting for the next year?
I expect growth to continue. I hope it accelerates as we get better at communicating the news about the Internet Computer and its incredible capabilities. If you go to dashboard.internetcomputer.org, you'll see it's currently clocking about 5,000 transactions a second. That's almost 500 million transactions a day. That's composed both of what we call as update transactions and also something called query transactions, which are pre-finalized. I'd love to see us getting above 10, 20 billion transactions a day. The network can easily scale out to handle that. I'm very, very excited about what's going to happen when two new key features come online. One is this thing called the service nervous system. It's a kind of DAO framework that about 100 plus projects are now queued up to use that will allow people to fully decentralize the services they built on the Internet Computer and run them as protocols. Those decentralization processes will involve decentralization sales. I think that's going to just draw a lot of attention to the Internet Computer ecosystem that's coming. The testnet already has this thing called Bitcoin integration that's entirely based on cryptography. There are no bridges involved. That allows Internet Computer smart contracts to directly operate on the Bitcoin ledger. And we think this will allow people to create what we call Bitcoin DeFi, native Bitcoin DeFi. That same capability will also allow people to, for example, invoke code on Ethereum or Near or Avalanche and see the results, because smart contracts will be able to create transactions that the internet computer blockchain itself will sign for them in a secure way. So that's going to be interesting too. I think we're going to see the internet computer becoming a Web3 orchestration layer, where you see, for example, DEXs that allow people to trade different cryptocurrencies, for example, but never leave their own chains. So these are just game-changing features that are coming online now. Lastly, I suppose, being a sort of a bit of a an internet computer geek, deterministic time slicing is in the works. So the internet computer is the only blockchain that runs that scales out a single blockchain environment. There's no sharding, no notion of partitioning, and within that environment, smart contracts run in parallel. One of the restrictions, though, currently is that the function invocation still has to complete within the gas limit of a block, if you like. Things work a bit differently on the internet computer. Smart contracts use something called reverse gas. They pay for their own computation. Deterministic time slicing will allow multi-block transactions, and this is very important because if someone wanted to build Instagram on the internet computer, say, if you wanted the smart contracts to apply image filters, currently you might struggle to get them inside the per block gas limit. So that's going to be really important, and I think it just reflects as well how far we've come. We've created an infinitely scalable blockchain that's a real world computer. It's orders of magnitude more efficient. It enables smart contracts to process HTTP and serve web experiences directly to users in ways that don't involve cloud and traditional IT. And we've driven efficiency orders of magnitude higher, to the point that we believe that the internet computer will provide people with a way of building systems and services that result in less CO2 emissions than building purely on cloud like Amazon Web Services, for example. And that is an absolutely dramatic change from the current status quo, where blockchains tend to just burn vast amounts of energy. To give you an idea, I went to the Ethereum staking page the other day, and they've got 400,000 validators for the merge, and that means computation and data storage are being replicated 400,000 times. That's absolutely not necessary mathematically to deliver the required security. So obviously that running smart contracts on Ethereum will remain extremely expensive and extremely environmentally unfriendly. So the internet computer is going to give people a way of offloading computation from the cloud and where it's not needed from other blockchains, creating, for example, front ends for other blockchains on the internet computer so that they don't have to rely on the cloud using chain keys. So all of this is coming, and I think it's going to be tremendously exciting to watch what happens in the coming months and next year.
Thank you, Dom. Thank you very much for sharing. With that, I think that brings us to the end of our panel discussions. Thank you very much again for your insight, for sharing and observation. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you all here in Singapore soon, and probably next year, hopefully in Shanghai. Thank you very much, and have a nice one.